be taking a look at how to use a grid in order to effectively drop the facial features proportionately as you work from an image on a screen or a printout and you are trying to create that drawing in your sketchbook or on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, so gridding is a really simple process, and one of the things that we're going to do is use a digital tool to help with the grid process. Right? It's fairly straightforward. There are apps out there that you can purchase and put overlays and on top of different images. You can explore those on your own. I'm just going to use Google Slides in order to do this really quickly. So the first thing that I've done is I've changed the size of the actual image to 8 inches by 10 inches. And I've done that by going to File, Page Setup, and then selecting Custom from the drop-down menu and setting my dimensions in here and then applying. Then I took my image and I imported it in. I'm using an image by Steve Murray. He is a National Geographic photographer, and this is one of his portraits that I'm using as an exemplar. Once I have the image in place, I'm going to start drawing in a shape. I'm going to select a square. I'm going to just draw a random square. It doesn't really matter where it is at this point in time, because what we need to do is we need to set the parameters for this particular box. Okay? So I'm going to go to Format Options, and I'm going to change the width to 1 inch and the height to 1 inch in order to get a perfect square. Right? It's important that you make sure that this lock aspect ratio is unchecked. Otherwise, what you're going to notice is that when you change one dimension, the other one's going to change automatically. So once this is in place, this correct size, I'm going to take my fill, I'm going to make it transparent, and I'm going to change my border color to a kind of a lightish gray. And I found that about 3 pixel dimensions is good for being able to see this fairly clearly. Right? You can play around with it and see what you like as well. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste that block, and because the shapes snap together, I'm able to very quickly get these boxes to come across the top of my image, and then I'm going to select all of them. I'm holding the Shift key in order to grab multiple objects, and right click, and I'm going to group these together just so that it's a little bit easier in case I unclick, for example. Right now I can click and it grabs everything again. I'm going to Command or Control C for copy, and I'm going to paste that as well, and now I've got my second row, and I'm going to grab the 2 of them together and then paste again. And very, very quickly, I am able to establish a grid over top of a photo. All right, and the best part about this is that it is set up perfectly for what it is that I need to be able to do, right? And I can manipulate and slide images in and out in order to create this overall structure. Okay, so that's going to be part 1, is getting the image on your grid. Now what I want to do is I want to think about my own composition here in terms of how I want to emphasize this. And again, I'm going to draw in a shape. I'm going to use a rectangle, and I'm going to kind of start to kind of block out the areas that I don't want. I'm going to use black here just so that it really makes it a stark contrast. And I'm going to play around with what I want the composition to look like in my final drawing. I'm going to line that up. Right, and again, using the guide features, makes it really, really easy for me to go in and customize and get everything lined up. Okay, so there we go. This is what I'm going to use for my my particular drawing. If I'm printing this out, what I would probably do is I would join all of these together, right? And of course I would turn these white so that I'm not wasting my ink coming out of my paper. So I'm also going to just change that. I'm going to change my border color to white as well. Okay, so this is setting up the image, and now what I have is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my composition is 5 by 7, and I'm going to enlarge this in my sketchbook, and that's the next thing that I am going to show you. All right, so now what we're doing is we're coming into our paper, whether it's a sketchbook or a separate piece, and we need to transfer the grid or make a grid in our book as well, right? And I want to enlarge the dimensions that I have in my photograph on the screen or on my printout, right? So by using a multiplier, I'm going to be able to enlarge the image. So the original boxes were 1 inch by 1 inch. If I want to make it bigger, I'm going to select 1.5 inches. So it's going to be about 50%, about 150% the size of the image that I have on the screen. So I'm going to go 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, and then 7.5. Okay, so I have these little tick marks across the top, and keep starting on the same edge. I'm going to line up my ruler on the outside edge again, and I'm going to again go 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, and then 7.5. The next step is to line up my ruler against the ticks top and bottom, and I'm going to draw in the lines. While I'm doing this, I am being very mindful of not pressing too hard with my pencil, because if I press hard, I'm going to dent the paper and it's going to affect my ability to draw the value and add shading in later. And also, if I draw too hard, I'm not actually going to be able to erase these lines if I need to, as the drawing gets layered in over top. Okay, so I have one set of directions this way, and I'm going to come back over here, and I need to do the same thing. So I'm going to start up at the top of the page, and I'm going to go 1.5 inches, and I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes. Okay, so 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, that's 6, and then I go to 10.5. I'm going to do the same thing on another line down here, and it doesn't have to be the one at the bottom, but we want them fairly far apart in order to try and make sure that it's fairly accurate. And again, following the same measurements: 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, and then 10.5. Right? And same as we did in the opposite direction, I'm going to line up the ruler with the two markings and lightly draw these across. Okay, so just like that, I have a grid in place. Right, I've got some extra stuff around the outside that I'm not going to use, but I'm actually, or in terms of my drawing, but I'm going to use these for labeling purposes. Okay, so I'm going to call this bottom corner 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to go up A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So I should have 7 tall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 5 across in order to start my drawing, right? And these coordinates are going to help me. So I've also gone in, I'm going to label these coordinates into my Google Doc as well, just to make it a little bit easier for me to find out where it is that I'm going. All right, so one other thing that we can do here is to create a coordinate system. And to do that, I'm gonna copy these boxes here, and I'm gonna paste them down at the bottom. and I'm just gonna put a line through here, and I'm gonna change the orientation to centered horizontally and centered vertically as well, because what I want to do here is type in some coordinates to make it easier for me to cross-reference to my original. So across the bottom, I'm going to put a numeric coordinate, 4 and 5. Right? I can make these a little bit bigger, perhaps. Right, nice and large for us to be able to see. And then I'm also going to take these coordinates. I'm going to copy them again, and actually I'm not going to copy them. I'm going to just copy 1, and that way I'm having troubles grabbing just the 1. Do you know what I need to do? I need to ungroup them. Okay, so here we go. Now we can start going. I'm going to move that one up, copy and paste this one as we go up the side. Right, of course I could grab a whole bunch of these as well, just so that I have less clicking that I need to do. There we go, and I'm going to select all of these, and again I'm going to change my font size and my alignment, and starting in the bottom left, I'm going to say this is my A block, B block, C block, D block, E block, F block, and G block. Again, let's get it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. There we go. So by having these coordinates on both my reference photo and in my sketchbook or on my paper, it just makes sure that I'm getting the details in the correct boxes. All right, so we're going to jump back over to our paper drawing. So what I want to do is I'm going to start with the box F3. And at this point, I'm going to put the image down in the bottom right-hand corner just so that you can kind of see where I'm following what I'm doing here. I'm going to start by drawing the edge of the fabric across the forehead. And it's just slightly below that grid line. So I can place this line across, and as I'm coming to the next box, right, I know where I'm starting, and I can use the grid as a reference point to kind of help me figure out how far down that needs to curve in order to get to where it needs to go. As I come into box F1, it continues to curve down, but now I'm noticing that there's actually a fabric that is coming vertically through the box, and I need to get that into place as well. If I'm looking closely, the point of intersection where this horizontalish line meets the vertical line, it's not right in the center, right? It's actually up a little bit over here. So I'm going to start sketching in this line here. And if I continue this line into G1, this is going to come up and come across like so. Right, I'm going to actually follow this line down again. It comes through E1, and it just kind of curves out a little bit and in, and then continues to curve. And then now I'm facing yet another line. So drawing this line, it comes from about a quarter of the way through, intersects, and then comes to just over halfway, and follows up almost to the corner in E1. All right, I'm going to come back in. It comes down almost to the corner of C1, and then it bends through the corner of B1 out into B2 and down, and this line finishes off in A2 with a little bit of a curve around, right? And through here, I'm also then able to start delineating some of those other interior lines as well. And that one comes to about halfway. This line comes out through here, right? And I'm going to be able to use this in order to try and maintain the proportional accuracy as I enlarge the image. All right, so I'm going to continue just to kind of do a think aloud of what it is that I'm doing to give you an idea of what the process is for working with this type of image enlargement process. All right, so now I'm going to go into F4, right? The line across the forehead continues to come down, and it's about the same distance down as over on the opposite side, and it comes into F5 ever so slightly. At this point, there's a line that's going to come up and joins in. It's pretty straight and then kind of curves right through the shadow there. And then I have a little bit more of a shadow coming through the corner here of F5 as well, right? So the strategy that I've been using is kind of one line and seeing where it goes throughout the entire composition and following it from box to box. I do know some individuals that will just work on all of the lines in one box at a time, right? And that's another way that some people feel comfortable going about this process as well. Okay, so this is coming down the side of the face. There's a little bit of her cheek in D5 before it kind of follows down the line there and then cuts the bottom corner of D5, and her cheekbone is lower cheek is down in C5, and it comes almost all the way across, and I catch the corner, and her chin comes in and it doesn't quite touch the bottom through here, but comes all the way through the line and joins up over at the side, right? And then from here, the purple fabric comes through, and it comes through this space here to about the halfway point through B4, and then a little bit further over on this part here, right? And we have the overall kind of structure. I'm going to come back in, I'm going to add in some of the folds of the fabric. So jumping back up to E5, I've got a line that comes through where the fold is, comes down and then jogs a little bit as it comes to the line, comes across through C4 and then down, and then backs off a little bit and then comes forward again through the corner and into A4. But last line for the fabric, I'm going to start on the line that separates C and D all the way over at the edge of the image. It comes across, it's down, kind of comes over to the edge, and then it comes out again over here. So I've got the overall space figured out. I can go in and now start working on the facial features. So I'm going to start with the lips. I see that they are in C3, and the seam of the lips, so the opening of the lips, is lower than half. It's fairly straight across, and it comes, comes into C2, and the lips, trying to make sure that I'm maintaining the overall structure. Right there, they're pretty sharp lines, and the bottom lip comes right down to that edge and then trails up on either side. All right, so I'm drawing these in really loosely at this point. I'm not being too meticulous because I am gonna come back in and clean up these lines. So working with the nose, I see that the nostril comes up and over a little bit, down, and the nose is pretty sharp, and it comes into C3 and up and over that divisive line, and the nose comes up across and over. Right, the nose follows through into the bridge, which is going to be in, it looks like E3, right, and all right, from here I'm going to follow the eyebrows, which come up on a bit of an angle, like so. All right, and get the tear duct in and bring this up and over. All right, and I'm going to work on getting the iris in place, as well as the pupil. And I'm going to come over and then work on the other eye. Again, noticing it starts in E3 with the tear duct, right? And this eye, there's a kind of an arc here that's happening with the way that the photo was taken. So I want to try and maintain that as well. So that the tear duct is just below center, and it comes up to about a quarter of the way through, and not almost to the edge again. And again, looking at the placement of the iris, right, and this is where it's going to get really important. You want to make sure that the irises are lined up or aligned properly from one to the next in order to be able to make sure that the person isn't looking cross-eyed. Okay, so just like that, we're able to establish the grid, right? And fairly quickly, this was only 15 minutes. I was able to draw the grid and get a fairly reasonable enlargement sketched out just with some basic contours into the grid. All right, the next step in the drawing process will be to add value and to develop the portrait and create that sense of three-dimensionality. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I will hopefully get back to you as quick as I can, help you out. I can't wait to see what you're able to do in the creation of your own self-portrait. Good luck, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.